Well, hello everyone, Texie88 here and welcome to another review. And now I'm looking at Psygnosis 1991 classic puzzle game, Lemmings. Now, one thing that was notable about Lemmings when it came out is just how small the sprites were and yet how beautifully animated they are and how much personality they seem to have despite their small size. This game was a massive hit when it first came out and spawned several sequels, as well as a semi-follow-on called Oh No, More Lemmings. And there's this little intro sequence. And you can see a whole bunch of lemmings floating gently down to the ground and wearing blue jumpers and having green hair. You know, just your typical average lemming, and got this rather jaunty tune playing in the background, and great animation there too. And out comes, and there's our logo. Well, their logo. God, this game was huge back in 1991. And the mouse pointer changes into a lemming's hand for the game, and very cute it is too. So you can actually have two-player versus in this, and you can choose whether or not to have music or just sound effects. But there is sound effects even if you've got the music turned on. Then there's different levels of difficulty. You've got fun, tricky, taxing, or mayhem. We'll just show you fun for the time being. So one player, and the waiting mouse pointers turn into a lemming having a snooze in bed. So here's our first level, Just Dig it's called. We've got to save 10% of the 10 lemmings that we get, and we get 5 minutes to do it. So I have to get at least one of the lemmings out of the exit door, and there's a little preview at the top of the screen before you actually commit to the level. So we've got different skills at the bottom here. There's climber, floater, bomber, blocker, builder, basher, miner, and digger. You can only use the skills that have a number over the top, and so I can use the digger 10 times. So I've used it on that particular lemming. So as you can see, because I've used one, my count of diggers has gone down by 1. So I can only use that skill 9 more times, not that I actually need to. And you get this preview map screen which you can drag around. The yellow dots show where lemmings are. See what I mean? Look how well they're animated considering their small size. So I just about managed to save the number of lemmings required to go to the next level, and you get an access code. You can just key in to a few, so you can continue from where you left off. And similar sort of thing. 10 lemmings. I've got to get at least one out, and I've got 5 minutes to do it. And this is where we use floaters, hence the title of this level. Now, floaters prevent turning a lemming into a floater prevents it from dying by falling too far. And you get that dong every time you apply a skill to a particular lemming. So I've used all 10 of the floaters I was given, so I can't use any more. Not that I need to, because there are only 10 lemmings in this level. Floater is one of 2 skills that you can give to a lemming that permanently affects it. The other is climber. All the others only used once, and once it's worn off, it has to be used again. tailor-made for blockers. Now, because lemmings wander aimlessly in the direction they're going, and unless an obstacle stops them, or they die, or they go out the exit, whichever happens to them first. A blocker actually blocks the path of the other lemmings and turns them to face the other way. As the blocker effectively acts like a wall. Lemmings always go to the right when they first exit those doors. So by putting that there, see how the lemmings go against it, and then are forced to turn around because the blocker's preventing them from actually getting past. If a lemming falls off the bottom playing area, it dies. And this here allows you to increase the rate at which they come out of that door. See, I've got it to maximum. See, look, it's not even slowing down despite having all those lemmings on the screen. You can actually see just how beautifully animated they are, particularly the ones close to the bottom of the screen, which are separate from one another. And you can see at the bottom how many lemmings are still in play who haven't exited yet, and the percentage of those that you've currently rescued. So you've got a good idea of how many you've reached before, and how far you've got to go before you've compulsorily reached the compulsory minimum to. And I had to blow them up because apart from blowing them up, the only other way you can actually turn a blocker into a normal walker lemming is to dig the ground underneath their feet, although that can be much easier said than done. You have to position it just right. Now you've got miners and climbers, so you've got 2 skills in this one rather than just 1. So I've got to save all 10 of them this time, 100% to be saved. So I've got 1 miner. Miner is one of those skills where you have to pay particular attention to which way the lemming is facing before you apply it. Now I've used the only miner I've got, it notice there's no number above it. I can't use that skill for the rest of this go. Now I'm just using climber on all these, because otherwise they'll just turn around the moment they hit that wall. Right, I've got no more climbers left, but then there are no more lemmings. Climbers can only climb up as long as there are no overhangs. If they reach an overhang, they'll fall back down. Luckily, that's a perfectly vertical stretch, so it's not a problem. And if you turn a lemming into a climber and a floater, it's known as an athlete. In case I didn't explain, I can't remember whether I did. The floaters stop a lemming from falling too far because it uses that umbrella to slow down its rate of descent. Because in that level where I had to use floaters, had they fallen from the top of that rightmost plinth and I hadn't used floater on it, any lemming that hit the ground from that height would die. So I've got to save 10% of the 50 lemmings in this level. And you can see there are lots of different tunes in this. With Basher, you have to be careful not to be too far away from what you want to bash through, otherwise you'll just be bashing nothing and you'll waste one of the uses. Mesh. And there's the exit. So I mean, it's a bit fiddly trying to figure out where to bash. Right. Is there anything over here? Right, so it's just a case of waiting. I can now increase the rate of exit. Oh, there weren't that many left. So even when it's off screen, you can tell when lemmings have exited. You can also tell whether a lemming has died, although you'd have to keep an eye on the map to see where that had happened. So when you got mesh like that, it can be a bit of an irritation as to how many bashes or whatever you end up having to use in order to get through. So blockers and bombers here. So I've got 50 lemmings and I've got to save 20% of them. So bomber is another way of getting through thin walls and floors. But the downside is the lemming dies. With this kind of thing, it can be a bit tricky to time to time where to start exploding the countdown for a lemming that you turn into a bomber, particularly if you don't have particularly if you haven't got the means of doing what I just did and turning one into a blocker first to fix them in position and then doing it. There are levels later on where you have to have precision bombing without the ability to do that, and that's when you need to have a good idea of how far a lemming will travel while it's counting down. And that fire blaster there, you get that kind of thing on later levels, and if they're in line with lemmings, any lemming that walks into that fire will die. So there are traps on later levels. So I'm going to increase the rate of percent. So if they fall in lava or water, they will die. So I needed 20% and rescued 94% of them. And see, each time you complete a level, you get a code that you can key in and start again from where you left off. Builders will help you here. This is an absolute classic, it really is. So I've got 20 builders. A builder lays about 12 bricks at a sort of 33-degree angle. So here's how it works. That, as you heard, when you hear when you hear the 10th, 11th, and 12th bricks, you will actually hear the last of the you'll actually hear the last 3 bricks being laid. So if you need to continue building, you'll need to actually use another builder on that same lemming to get him to continue to build at the same way. Increase the rate of descent. You can see here. So you've now seen all 8 of the different skills that you can give to a lemming in Lemmings, and from now on you'll tend to get a mixture of differing numbers of any or all skills, and you have to use skill and judgment to determine when and where to use those skills. And you can double click on this nuke thing to turn all the lemmings on screen into bombers. You can either use that if the lemmings are in, if the remaining lemmings are trapped like those ones were, or you can actually use that to start a level again if you made a complete hash of it. And in case you're wondering, the paw prints icon next to the left of that is pause. It's a play on word, pause, P-A-W-S and P-A-U-S-E. I wonder how that would have translated across other languages. Not as complicated as it looks. So I've got to get 95 of the 100 lemmings out, and it's got a release rate of 88. So as you can see, I've got 20 of each skill in this one. So I'm going to have a quick look around and see what's here. How much is that doggy in the window? Blocker. Oh no, I don't need that. See, if a lemming falls in the water, it dies. See, look at this. Look how many lemmings are on the screen, and it's not slowing down. It's not suffering from slowdown. I do remember that later levels, when you had about 100 lemmings on screen at the same time, could slow down a little. And bear in mind that the clock keeps strict time no matter what, so sometimes you might have to put all the lemmings off screen with this map to get them to go out quicker than they would have done if you could visibly see them. No, nothing left except to turn that blocker into a bomber to get rid of him. So I got 98% of them out, so I did it. As long as you try your best, I've got to get 90 of the 100 lemmings out and full whack release rate. That release rate is also the minimum, so I can't slow it down. It's pinned to 99, so no matter what I do, I'm stuck with the maximum release rate for this one. So I'll put that blocker there because if they walk into that flame, they'll die. I can't save that lemming because, as I said, but apart from being able to dig underneath a blocker to turn them into a walker, the only other way to remove a blocker is to turn them into a bomber or to nuke them. If Smile if you love lemmings, level 10, and I've got to get 10 of the 20 lemmings out, and it's got a release rate of 50. So I'm not going to do this one because I've lost too many lemmings. But this is only a review, it's not a serious playthrough. So I'm actually going to end the review here. You've seen the sort of thing you have to do. If I was to tell you that you have to meet the minimum requirement of how many lemmings reach the exit in order to complete a level and advance to the next one. So that's Lemmings for the Commodore Amiga, classic platformer, massive hit when it came out, and you just can't help but love to hate the cute and cuddly lemmings that the mainstay of the game. Graphics, despite being really small, they're so full of character and so well animated that you barely even notice how small they are. It's only really a problem if you have to do a precision move and you have to hope that a skill that you've clicked on that's required for the lemming to be facing a particular direction, that you've clicked on a lemming that is facing that direction so you don't waste it, especially on later levels where the number of a particular skill may be severely restricted compared to the earlier levels like the ones you've just seen. But it's good that the way this game just gradually gauges you in and introduces the skills one or two at a time, and that gets you prepared for how things work out later. So sound is really good, and jaunty little music. Some are based on nursery rhymes, some are classical, and some are and so forth. And that also means that they wouldn't have to worry about licensing costs for using more modern music that might have had and perhaps still have copyright protection on it. So that would have helped to keep costs down in terms of music. And you get those charming samples like "Let's go" and "Oh no," and other incidental sounds which also add to the gameplay. Including that it plays a sound effect every time you apply a skill to a lemming, so you know when it's worked without having to look down at the status bar at the bottom. Gameplay. Well, as I've played through the Lemmings game previously, I can tell you that the difficulty curve is pretty good. It's not one where you get a small number of levels, then suddenly you're faced with something severely difficult. It does gradually ease you in, and there are some absolutely nightmarish ones where you have really tight time limits, amongst other things. And in fact, in each of the 4 difficulty levels, there's actually a level that's entitled "Just a Minute," and that's literally what you get, just 1 minute to complete the whole level. And I seem to recall, at least on the hardest difficulty setting, you had to get every last one of the lemmings out before that minute expired. And if you lost even just one, it was no good. You had to do the level again and again until you did it. That was one of those occasions I mentioned where I had to put all the lemmings off screen to keep the running to prevent slowdown. When you got more than about 80 lemmings on screen, that's when the frame rate noticeably dips a little. It doesn't get jerky, but it does noticeably slow down. That can be quite frustrating. And also, as I mentioned, if you're having to do a precision move and you're having to click on a lemming that's in a whole clump of other lemmings, it's just by pot luck as to whether or not you get one going the right way. If it's one that's wholly dependent on which way the lemming in question was facing. But all things considered, Lemmings is still a lot of fun to play, and even though it is a puzzle game, there are times when it doesn't entirely feel like one because of its arcade-like nature as well. So I'll happily give Lemmings for the Amiga 8 out of 10. Were it not for those aforementioned problems, I would have happily given it 9. But 8 is still a very respectable score, and I still think it's worth a look nearly 30 years after the game was first unleashed to an unsuspecting public. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that review. Catch you on another one. Texie88 out.